Good evening. I have a reading tonight from a publication called Keepers at Home, and the story is called The Perfect Midwife by Sara Nolt. Mothers give birth in Ghana all the time, but not this mother. My previous births took place in our home, enveloped with my own American culture and presided over by a gentle midwife. But this time, halfway through my third pregnancy, I was in Ghana facing uncertainties of birth with trepidation. I might feel better about the delivery once we find a doctor, I told my husband, John. But choosing a doctor wasn't easy. Local obstetricians all had negative stories circulating about them. Do you go to the doctor who is C-section happy, the hospital that does an overwhelming amount of scans, or the clinic that bans your husbands from the delivery room? Perhaps a positive birth story is when a mother and baby are alive and well in the end, not when all the details are to her liking, I suggested. I just need to lower my expectations. We looked again at the options we had rejected and selected the one we trusted the most. But before I made an appointment, someone said, "Do you know there is a clinic in Accra that offers water births?" I must have brightened noticeably because she continued, "I wouldn't get too excited. They probably have an algae-infested pool with 3 ladies laboring in it." A communal birth in a petri dish didn't appeal to me, but a sanitary water birth did. In a country where laboring women are confined to beds, a midwife who offered water births was worth interviewing. Even the name of her business was Cradle Care. The name concerned me. Was that cradle misspelled? I hoped delivering babies was not spelling, and spelling was not her strong suit. The proprietress gave us a tour of her facilities. There was no algae. The inflatable pool was similar to the one that I left behind in America. The midwife was a British-trained Ghanaian who didn't slap or yell at laboring mothers, unlike her contemporaries. She expected fathers to be present instead of finding creative ways to get them out of the way. She didn't do ultrasounds at every visit. She respected natural childbirth. She told me repeatedly, "It is your birth. You get to choose what makes a good experience for you." She was everything I wanted in a midwife. I leaned back in my chair, letting John finish a conversation on payments and policies. My gratitude to God for providing this facility went so deep that there was almost a physical ache. But at each visit, my confidence in the midwife's skill lessened. "I usually do one ultrasound at 12 weeks and another at 20 weeks, she told us at the original interview. "But this is your birth. If you don't want any ultrasounds, you don't have to have any." Only she couldn't find the baby's position without an ultrasound. I had an ultrasound at every visit. The midwife wanted me to drink raspberry leaf tea in preparation for delivery. I was surprised that the fame of raspberry leaves had found its way to Ghana, and was even more surprised that she had some on hand. "Oh, you can get it here," she said nonchalantly. "Almost every store has it." She rooted through a cardboard box in the corner of the room and pulled out a carton of raspberry-flavored black tea. "But this is black tea," I said hesitantly, hoping she wouldn't be upset. "It only has raspberry flavorings." Her voice was lilting and unconcerned. "I know, but it tastes good, so it must do something. Do you have any red raspberry leaf?" I didn't. "Then take this." I put the tea in my purse and brewed it for John at home. At every visit, the midwife talked about her clients' recent births. Some stories broke down my confidence in her skills, like force-feeding a mother a placental piece to stop a hemorrhage. Other stories elaborated on physicians' errors at the hospital we chose as a backup. But my biggest concern was the extreme exhaustion that she carried after every birth. Did she question her own competence, or why did routine births drain her energy so? At the end of my appointment on week 35, I expected prenatal visits to become more frequent. Instead, the midwife said, "I'll see you at the birth." If you don't want me to come before then, I wondered if this preference reflected her British training or casual view of prenatal appointments. "I don't need to see you, but this is your birth, so if you want to come in, you can." I wanted to. She shrugged and grinned as if I was overly cautious. Then, glancing over the notes that she had taken that day, she said, "The baby is still breech and your iron levels are low and your blood pressure is rising. So it isn't a bad idea, actually. With no confidence left in my midwife skill, I turned to God, desperate to find peace before labor again. I searched for Bible verses and verses that pertain to birth and found these in Job 39. Knowest thou the time when the wild goats of the rock bring forth? Or canst thou mark when hinds do calve? Canst thou number the months they fulfill? Or knowest thou that the time when they bring forth? I felt cared for by God. If he pays attention to the birth of the mountain goats, counting the days until our delivery, surely he keeps an eye on the children created in his image. I wish I could count down to the days that my baby's birth with some confidence. Going overdue would be a problem because my midwife planned to visit England a week after my due date. Who is your backup? I asked. My babies always have been late. If this baby's late as my others, you won't be here when I deliver. She had no backup plan to offer. She would only say with certainty, I didn't share, you won't go late. I knew God was counting the days to the delivery. There was nothing like going late. Still, I prayed that the midwife would be in the area when the baby came. Even if she wasn't, I found peace in Psalm 22, where it says delivering babies is God's work. I was safe in his hands. The midwife or random doctor at the hospital we chose as our backup would only be his tools. During these peace-seeking days, I read Redeeming Childbirth, devouring the counsel from an experienced mom. Regardless of how the birth goes, Angie Toplin wrote, God will be there. Emergencies don't mean I lack faith or I'm not being taken care of. Emergencies mean God had different plans than my carefully laid ones. Birth is not all about the mom and the baby. Birth is about God receiving glory. Regardless of the details, I felt strangely comforted by that and thought and prayed that I could remember it during the delivery. Peace stayed with me on our day that the baby was born. 2 days before my due date, as she had promised, my midwife didn't leave my side, but shared the crowded delivery room with John and me. Mostly, she sat near my elbow and scrolled through her phone. Several times, she stood up abruptly, tossed her phone aside, and said, Okay, baby, I'm tired of waiting. Let's try something else. One method of encouraging delivery was to lead me up and down a staircase that stretched from cement courtyard to the clinic's roof. It had no handrail. Her petite hand that gripped mine was my only protection against a fall. Dwarfed by my bulk, the midwife set the pace at a jog and trotted lightly up and down the steps. With my voluminous skirt swishing, I clomped beside her in heavy flip-flops, praying all the while that I wouldn't trip and plummet both of us over the edge. The concentration those stairs required must have offset the exercise because delivery was not hastened. At least she tried. After nearly 20 hours of labor, my baby was born. There was no complications, no emergencies. John was with me the whole time. We left cradle care the next morning with a perfect son in the arms of a healthy, jubilant mama. The midwife looked on, exhausted. The midwife, she had been a perfect fit for us after all. Instead of meeting my needs through her competence, she redirected me to God, the true source of peace. What a wonderful story that is, and something for all mothers to reflect on, that God is in control, that we're not in control at all. Thank you for joining us today at The Simple Storyteller.